Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to the eSports Report, of course presented by Xbox One, the official console of Major League Gaming, and it's that time of the day where we do our recap of everything Pro League. Of course, it's Monday, there's actually going to be no Pro League games today, so we thought we'd extend the show and do a Week 1 review. Of course, lots of stuff happening last week. We had a huge battle. Of course, Greenwall versus Red Militia was there the last time we saw the teams play. Battle of the caster predictions. Me and you currently
we're tied now.
Sitting pretty, so that's pretty good. And of course, we'll be taking a look at all of the Week 2 schedule. But to kick things off, we will start with that big game, Matt. It was the Greenwall versus a Red Militia. Optic Gaming versus FaZe. So many people looking at this as kind of the big battle that you expect to see towards the end of the season.
Right, like a pre-UMG
essentially, right,
finals matchup. But it's game one. It was going to be a drift hardpoint. OG was able to take that one 205, 201. Plays their formal back and forth. You know, this one went down to the final seconds. You'd expect that between these two teams.
This game was insane. Of course, me and Puckett staying up late casting this one. And honestly, massive props to Karma at the very end of the game. There's going to be a highlight of course, his play. We'll kind of break it down. But as you mentioned, Matt, you know, this, for the most part, was those battle players. Clayster, formal, really just exchanging those blows. And you broke down Drift Hardpoint earlier on last week as obviously a new map coming into Season 3. Very kind of AR heavy. Your AR gunfights are really important, aren't they?
Yeah, oh, without a doubt. Especially on that last hill. I mean, you're able to take a ton of time on it. And, you know, we've seen Karma have pretty good games on Drift Hardpoint so far this season.
Yep.
I mean, we've seen it, you know, the first time they played it against ISO, you know, even in the loss, you know, comes up with some big kills. And then I know the other time I've seen them play it, it's come up with some big kills around the hill, able to win those gunfights, give his team some extra time. So some big plays out of him. OG was able to take this one.
You can see, of course, so many gunfights going on. This was a FaZe host as well, so bear that in mind. Going into this game, you kind of have to look at it as, well, you know, FaZe need to hold their host, go big, and interestingly, the banned hosts throughout this were actual Formal and Clay. So they banned both ARs, didn't want any of those going off, which kind of makes a little bit of sense. For FaZe, I believe it was a Zuma host, and for Optic, I believe it was a Scumpy host.
And this is the first time we got a real good look at the new FaZe lineup.
Yeah, against actual, like, really solid competition.
In, like, an actual match, you know, against, obviously, the best right now.
Right.
So it's good to see that they're able to hang.
Yeah, it is. And, of course, going into this, Optic Gaming were 1-1 on Drift. They lost earlier in the week to ISO, and, of course, they beat Envy in a nail-biter. And this one, you know, speaking of nail-biters, you can see, look how close this is. Minute 15 left, a 179, 177 game. It gets absolutely insane towards the end of this game, Matt, and I mean insane. Karma making some big plays, and considering, you know, kind of at that final minute, it was that close. I want you guys to take a listen to the commentary.
FaZe now with the lead with the final 5 seconds. The fifth hill is going to be where it all goes down. Optic Gaming do have that rotation, but I believe Zuma just picked up one. Scump able to trade that kill, and FaZe picking up a lot of kills in that kill feed right now.
Wow, attach, enable, Clay, all in your feed. Final 40 seconds, do or die time for Optic Gaming. Attach, inside is the player to knock out. I'm looking at the minimap. Who is it going to be from Optic? It's Karma. Karma gets through. Scump covering. Crim now in your feed. 20 seconds, 29 seconds left. 14-point advantage right now for FaZe.
Honestly, someone just needs to wallbang the hard point. It's going to be a 9-point game. Time is ticking. 21 seconds left. Scump from around the outside. Helps. Picks up the kill, but he is going to fall. Karma, last
focus on getting hill time, not the kills. Two players.
At the very end of the game, they used Karma lying on the hard point and Optic completely slaying around the outside. And one of the big questions that I looked at the end of that map number 1 was, why did no one try and wallbang Karma? He's lying there, you can shoot through the wood, but everyone from Optic slaying outside, and you just kind of lay there and pick up that time.
It's so frantic towards the end of games. I mean, it's really easy from our perspective to say, oh, why don't they just shoot Karma through the wall? But, you know, they're obviously dealing with players running at them, a lot of chatter in their own communications, you know, players just kind of screaming, trying to get something done at the end of the game. It's a lot harder to focus on that actual objective.
So Optic squeak by, literally the definition of squeaking, to a 1-0 lead in the series with that win there on Drift Hardpoint. And that set up a Detroit search and destroy. And after a nail biter like that, you kind of expect it to be a little close. But Optic did such a good job of just shutting down Enable from FaZe on the attacking side and also the defensive side. But Optic kind of cruised through that whole search and destroy.
6-3.
6-3 lead at the end of the game. Honestly, there was some nice 3 pieces from Formal in there as well. Just demolished people mid-street. But really, that game was always going to go to Optic Game.
Yeah, Optic, pretty good in search and destroy. I think that's probably where they upgraded the most, I think, with Karma. I mean, they upgraded a lot in Respawn,
yes.
But S&D, they're more consistent. Crim and Karma had a 2v4
it was
at one point.
So nasty, so nasty. Last alive, and you can kind of see that natural chemistry that they already had come full into play. Just beautiful play. It really was. And then, as you said, they clutched that 2 versus 4. But that sent it to a game 3. Optic Gaming 2-0 up. We go over to an uplink comeback. And this is a strange map for Optic Gaming, it seems. They were really good at the start of the year. Then they had a big old loss spree at events where they just couldn't seem to win the map after the spawns were changed over to green side. But the early parts of this game, it looked like a demolition was about to occur.
Oh, yeah. OG, they dominate that first half. 3 minutes, 46 seconds. And you see right here, it's attached in the OG base, trying to make something happen. He's going to get that 2-point score. But did you see anything that led you to believe that this FaZe lineup in the future will be able to contend with OG?
I mean, yes, there was definitely glimpses or moments just like that where you were like, yo, this FaZe team could definitely compete against Optic for sure. But then at the same time, there was moments where they just seemed outclassed.
Yeah,
they really, and that was a scary thing, really. But FaZe not been together that long, trying to get that team chemistry. Hopefully by the season 3 finals, potentially over towards Worlds, we can see that FaZe lineup in their true potential. But as you can see, there was a couple of moments where FaZe maybe could have gone for a couple of 1-point throws. They tried to force a couple of 2-point throws, and sometimes didn't really work. They get a little bit lucky in that highlight reel there. But ultimately, it was Optic Gaming that managed to come out with a win, 14-11, the final score. Dominating performance from them. And Optic seem back to their winning ways comfortably now, at least.
Now, if you're FaZe, do you kind of consider this a good loss? Like, it was a close kind of all throughout. Maybe you go back and work on some things and you're able to take this type of series? Or is this something where they kind of have to worry a little bit and say, okay, we built this roster to compete with them. Can we actually do it?
The roster is still so kind of new. They're going to have those kind of growing pains, if you will, of going up against a team like Optic and throwing away a hardpoint like they did. Because that's what happened. They had the lead going into the final hardpoint and they just threw it away. Those mistakes, if you can kind of cancel those out, you're going to be fine. And it's important, especially in the league, to hold your host maps. Like a map 1, Drift hardpoint, you're playing Optic on a map they haven't looked strong on. You have host. That map's that you need to pick up if you're FaZe. And unfortunately on the night, they weren't able to do so. Optic with the sweep, 3-0. So they've continued to start their pro league pretty efficiently and pretty well. Up next in the evening, though, was TCM. Yes. A new TCM roster in the pro league. A couple of the European players not coming over. Ix and TP duo back together again.
It's weird to see on TCM.
It is. It's very, very strange. I was excited to see them in their first performance going up against Orbit, so kind of didn't really know where to go. I believe the casters were actually split on their predictions on this one, I'm pretty sure.
Yeah.
I think a couple of people went with TCM.
I think I went with TCM in this one.
I think that was what allowed me to actually ultimately catch up with you, is I went with Orbit on this one. Map number 1 was a Biolab hardpoint. Orbit win it with a 207-199 game.
That's a blowout.
Pretty close towards the end, but honestly, it was the 2 Europeans leading the charge in game 1 for TCM, which was really, really surprising. TP had a pretty rough game. Aches played relatively well. He looks as if he's going to be running main bow of the team, which I completely agree with. I think there was the one thing pre this game we looked at, and it was like, well, does TCM have a bow that can compete against the top North Americans with Moose running it? I don't think so.
Well, see, Moose has kind of been the player everybody's been looking at TCM. Right. I mean, it's kind of shocking they almost made that move, like to just drop Shane to the bench, because Shane, I thought, was playing pretty good.
He was playing well.
Yeah,
he was doing his
at least
role
towards the end of Season 2, I thought he was playing pretty well. So, all eyes are going to be on Moose in this team.
Yeah, definitely. As you said, he kind of picked up that flex role and he had a phenomenal game 1. But then over to game 2 was a Riot Search and Destroy. And this was just full of just sneaky diffuses. Ninjas. I mean, right now, for example, you see Judd in a 1 versus 2, and he's going to pick up the first kill. 22 seconds left. And with 20 seconds, he says, you know what? Screw it. Hopping on the bomb. Huh. And you're like, well, no, Burns going to check it. Don't worry about it,
Burns
will check it. Don't worry. And he doesn't check it in time. And Judd gets to defuse. And
that's round 1.
That's round 1. That's at the tone. Because ironically, going into round number 2, guess what happened?
Another ninja.
Oh, you're about to see it. Burns got a little bit upset with what happened in round number 1, shall we say, and decided he wanted to try and get a little bit payback. He hopped on the bomb as soon as it was planted and managed to get the defuse. A little bit different situation. It was a 3 versus 1.
Yeah, 3v1. They have Jerd pin. That's a little bit tougher.
Still managed to get the defuse, and really this Search and Destroy kind of back and forth until Orbit got themselves a little bit of a big lead. There you see 3-1 for Sento in a 1 versus 2. Moose desperately tracks him down, managed to make the kill, keeps TCM in the game, and after those first couple of rounds, Orbit's Search and Destroy really kind of came into full effect. I think this S&D team is really good.
Did TCM look like a new team to you? I mean, obviously, they haven't had a ton of time to practice, and even their practice hasn't been against, you know, it's obviously much different, the feeling of being in a league match versus, you know, just scrimming someone or even playing in a tournament. They haven't gotten that kind of good practice and vibe with each other yet. I think it's going to take a little bit for this team to gel, but how long can they actually kind of spend, you know, getting their teamwork together? Because obviously, you know, shortened league, you know, an 0-3 start right now is like an 0-6 start.
Yes, we talked about that last week, of course. You know, you start low in the league and start off slow. You can't really afford to do it because it's basically inflated. Now, of course, playing 22 games as opposed to 44 in the previous 2 seasons, a bad start can be horrific for a team. TCM desperately need to get things going. They've had a little bit longer than other teams. You know, only played 1 game in the Pro League so far, so they have that extra time, essentially, to try and get that chemistry down. But again, Matt, you know, the question is, how long is it going to take them?
And you're almost looking on, like, you know, how Moose plays. Here in the first few games, you see Moose going for a ninja. Doesn't get it, though.
Yeah, Burns, learning from his mistake in round number 1, decides to just go straight after Moose, who was going for the defuse. I mean, solid performance from Moose, to be honest, 8 and 7. It was really Judd and TP who struggled in that Search and Destroy. So Orbit lead 2-0. Then going into a game number 3, we're going to Parliament Uplink. Of course, another brand new game. And map 2, Season 3. And I was excited to really see a lot of the different play styles from teams, especially TCM, who we haven't seen play in the Pro League. Never seen them play this map, so it was pretty fun. And I got to say, Happy had one of the most nasty spots I've ever seen in the game. Yeah, he was basically off the map. I don't think this highlight reel is going to show it because I believe it was in the first side. But he was behind a pile of crates, essentially off the map, aiming into TCM's base. It was beautiful. Exactly where Center is now, but if he dropped backwards, you can actually look through the crates he's on.
Wow.
It was crazy. And you can see some nice passing play coming out there from Orbit. Happy able to secure a couple of plays. Honestly, fantastic performance from Orbit. They looked in full control of this entire series. They're up 7-0 with 2 minutes 51. And again, the question is, how long do you think, Matt, it's going to take TCM to gel?
It's a big win for Orbit, you know, talking about the good on their side. You know, they put up 5 points from good side, 2 points on the bad side. You see Jerd going in there for one of the scores for TCM, but you know, how long can they kind of just linger around and be okay? I think, you know, right after UMG Dallas, which is this weekend, you'll probably start to see them, you know, take things a little bit, I don't want to say more serious, but really start to like buckle down and grind out this league. Because
one of the big questions really that myself and Puckett had whilst watching TCM play was, you know, you look at T, just had his wedding. Right? How much COD has he realistically been playing on the back of his wedding? Has he maybe even
just had a birthday.
Touched Uplink Parliament? Probably not.
This team probably has not played this
Exactly.
match.
So it's like, yeah, okay, they lost, but you have to kind of take that with a little bit of pinch of salt. As you said, Matt, you know, once the season really starts to develop, you expect this team to really solidify themselves down as potentially fine for that top 8 spot. So Orbit with a 3-0, but there's a really big talking point that we want to touch on. And the question really is, you know, how slow of a start can TCM have? Is this panic time?
You know, they're what, 0-1? I don't think so. At 0-1.
But did that look like a team who can contest for top 8 right now?
I mean, they lost the hard point by 8 points. You know, they lose the Riot S&D 6-3, but it seemed like, at least, I mean, you casted it, but just from the highlights, it kind of seemed like one that was a toss-up, like rounds that were kind of just crazy.
Couple of ninja diffuses don't go your way.
Yeah, ninja diffuses don't go your way. You check the bomb a little bit sooner. And then Parliament Uplink, I mean, they lose by 3. How much have they realistically practiced that map?
Probably not that much.
So, I mean, they played Orbit, who I would say is, you know, top 8 caliber team, like right there on the bubble. They played them pretty close. I mean, you got to figure they only get better.
Yeah, you would hope so. I mean, is this the same TCM team that we'll see at Worlds, for example?
No.
No? You think there'll be some changes? Because one of the big things that we've been talking about is who's going to be running that main battle. At first, people assumed it was going to be Moose. Moose coming off the back of a pretty poor X Games.
Yes.
Feel like that can't be the case. I think he's really allowed X just go and take on that role. Moose running the flex role. Now, it seemed pretty good from the first couple of games that you saw, but then, of course, you have to bear in mind Team House, of course, TCM. In a Team House, that's massively going to affect things. But still, it looked good.
I think a lot of people would have liked to see, you know, how this team would have fared if it was like Mad Cat for Moose. Because Mad Cat had a great X Games.
Dude,
he was nasty.
He was the only one who seemed to be playing it.
I mean, you put Mad Cat into that spot, who knows what happens. I mean, could you see a Russ, like, let's say they go to Dallas and they're not that good and they come back and maybe lose like 1 or 2 more matches. Do you see any? Because I feel like we're going to see roster changes a lot earlier in this season. Like teams hit the panic button a lot sooner.
You don't have as many games, right?
Right, you don't have as many games. So like you lose like 4 or 5 games, and that's like almost starting out like 0-10,
right?
2-10.
You can't be doing.
In the other league, you couldn't.
Yeah. So I agree. I think you may see some roster changes coming a little bit earlier, and teams, of course, trying to get that chemistry down, especially like the TCM. For now, though, we're going to head over to a quick commercial break. Still plenty of highlights to go over for you guys at home from week 1 of the MLG Pro League. Be right back.